Dan, as much as the president's giving us a bad taste in our mouth, let's go back to a time where stuff like that didn't matter. Well, it mattered, but we didn't know about it because there was no social media. So we're going to go back to a time where territories ruled the United States, back when belts were called belts and not titles, and back where fans were fans and not called the universe, and back when sports entertainment was indeed professional wrestling. This is the Wrestling Historian. We're going to go back to June 18th, 1983. One of the greatest tag team matches anyone has ever seen took place in Charlotte, North Carolina. The Briscoe brothers, the original Briscoes, Jack and Jerry Briscoe, defeated Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood for the NWA Tag Team title. The Briscoes, who had been the number one face team in the Mid-Atlantic area for quite a while, turned heel and defeated Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood. And they would hold the belt until that Starrcade of that same year, 1983, the very first Starrcade. So that summer, they were waged war up and down the Carolinas in some epic matches. But the Briscoes finally beat Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood for the NWA Tag Team title, June 18th, 1983. We say hello and goodbye on this date. June 18th, 2010. Hard to believe it's been 10 years since we lost Michael Verde, who we both know as Trent Acid.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, Trent Acid. We talked that Foxy talked about earlier in our previous HIAC talk radio podcast. But I had some great times with him. Foxy mentioned earlier that he was nice to me, and this person might have been a jerk to a lot of other people. Trent Acid, depending on who you ask, had some bad experiences, good experiences. I've never had one single bad experience with Trent Acid. Every time I watched him wrestle, and it was at the front row at the 2300 Arena, the ECW Arena, the old bingo hall, whatever you want to call it. Back when PWU was the number one indie wrestling promotion in Philadelphia, Trent Acid was its champion. He and Johnny Cashmere were the Backseat Boys, and they were like a high-end version of the Midnight Express. But Trent was always a lot of fun. He came to the ring, the old Midnight Express theme. He was very respectful to the veterans. When he was pinned by Too Cold Scorpio, I saw him saying the words "thank you" as he was being pinned. And right before he was going to wrestle the great Ultimo Dragon, who wrestled in Philadelphia only one time, wrestle Trent Acid. Trent was so nervous, he went outside of the ring, and underneath the ring, he threw up.
Oh,
And when I told him I saw that, he goes, "You saw that, man?" I said, "Yeah, Trent, you were right in front of me." He goes, "Yeah, I was so nervous."
what?
But quickly excused himself, went underneath the ring side and threw up. But Trent Acid, Michael Verde, quite a character. Anyone who ever saw him wrestle knew how dedicated he was. He had his own personal demons, and unfortunately, he couldn't slay. But we lost him 10 years ago, June 18th. That same date, he would have had a birthday. He would have been 74 years old. Frank the Hammer Goodish, or as we know him, Bruiser Brody. Another person taken from us way too soon, but would have been 74, June 18th. June 19th, another tough guy. Maybe it's a Texas thing. I don't know, but this guy would have been 82 had he got that far. Ed McDaniel, who his friends called Wahoo. Happy
Yes.
belated birthday to Wahoo McDaniel. Also, that same day, June 19th, 1979, Pat Patterson defeated a very young Ted DiBiase for the WWF North American Heavyweight Championship. But what made that special is that belt would remain around the waist of Pat Patterson when he won a fictional tournament in Rio de Janeiro and would become the very first Intercontinental Champion. So Pat was the Intercontinental Champion, but the belt that he was wearing was the same belt that he won from Ted DiBiase, the North American Heavyweight Championship. and that occurred June 19th, 1979. June 20th, someone who's hey, we can wish a happy belated birthday to someone who's still here. James Ware turned 63 June 20th. James Ware, who you may know from his other names, Sweet Brown Sugar, and close friends call him Coco.
Oh, I don't know why it took so long to pick up on that.
Yes, James
Where,
Coco.
idiot?
Yeah, right there.
Right there,
Uh,
stupid.
James Coco, Beware. Happy belated 63. Happy belated 63rd birthday. I still um, retch at the mention of him being a WWE Hall of Famer, but can't change it. And I have to remind myself that the WWE Hall of Fame is simply not real. Because if it was, I guarantee you Coco Beware wouldn't be in it. Uh, Staying on that date, June 20th, 1981, right here in Philadelphia. I know exactly where I was. I was at the Philadelphia Spectrum, Dan, on June 20th, 1981, because that's where the magnificent Don Morocco defeated Pedro Morales with a foreign object the referee didn't see to become the Intercontinental Champion, the fourth man to hold the Intercontinental title. June 20th, 1981, also a special day for me because the opening match that night went to a draw. But I got to see Johnny Rods, who I've seen countless times. But now I know that Johnny Rods' role was to try out the new young talent to see how they were. And on this particular date, June 20th, 1981, I got to see Johnny Rods try out a young up and coming second generation wrestler. So June 20th, 1981 was the first time I ever saw Kurt Hennig wrestle.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, skinny, gangly kid, but
I'm watching a lot of that because I'm in early night. I'm just around. I just finished WrestleMania 6, and I
mm,
sat through the god awful Super Clash 4.
oh wow.
Oh my god, what a bad show! I'm sorry.
So sorry. Don't
It's a
apologize.
bad show. With all
It
due
was
respect to everybody on that show, Jesus Christ, no wonder that place went as fast as it did in those days.
yeah,
Um, but a lot of the early stuff, early '90s stuff, Kurt Hennig is playing way below his ability, man.
yeah,
I mean, not all of it, but there's a lot of
yeah.
matches. I'm like, my God, you should be so high, so much higher than you are. Yes, Wooly, he was perfect. Hi, little Wooly, by the way.
Hi, little Willie. Yes, Kurt Hennig, the last of the great AWA champions. I mean, the great that he finally got his due. That he was a world champion wrestler, and he got he's always be recognized as a world champion. When he was in the AWA, he's someone that Stan Hansen wanted to work with when he was AWA champion,
Exactly.
because that's how good he was. And his work speaks for himself. His time in the WWE, which he'll always be known for, is Mr. Perfect. But uh, again, as great as he was, being seen as as Mr. Perfect and a guy that would routinely do jobs to Hulk Hogan, a guy that couldn't carry his jock on his best day, always pained me, knowing how good he was and how great he was and how perfect he was. But I got to see his first match ever in Philadelphia, June 20th, 1981. That same date, June 20th, 1986, up in Stampede, Wayne Ferris defeated Bad News Allen for the Stampede North American Heavyweight Championship. And he would hold that belt till he would leave Stampede in August of that year, followed closely by the man he beat, Bad News Allen, that year. So Wayne Ferris defeated Bad News Allen, and they would both end up in the WWF as the Honky Tonk Man and Bad News Brown, respectively. But
Wow.
Wayne Ferris defeated Bad News Allen for the Stampede North American Heavyweight Championship. This is Stu Hart's old federation, and that's where the beginning of the talent from Stampede would slowly be siphoned to the WWF. So it started with his son and his son-in-law, Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, followed closely by Wayne Ferris, Bad News Allen, and others from Stampede. Owen would make their way, the British Bulldogs would make their way to the WWF. Uh, June 20th, 1987. Still, Bill Watts had a great idea to since WCW was expanding to the West Coast, that they should have a West Coast championship. So they had a tournament to decide the Western States Heritage champion. That tournament was won by Barry Windham, who defeated Black Bart, and Barry Windham became the first Western States Heritage Championship. And keeping with the Western motif, it was won in Houston, Texas, which I guess is as far west as it went. Even though the idea was for the Western States Heavyweight title to be defended in California and Nevada and Arizona and the Western states, but it was won in Houston. Staying with Bill Watts on that same day, June 20th, 1992, was Beach Blast, a WCW pay-per-view that would later be turned into Bash at the Beach. But Beach Blast in 1992, where Bill Watts had the great idea of having anyone who came off the top rope disqualified, because coming off the top rope or top rope maneuvers he thought was too common and wasn't special anymore. So anyone who came off the top rope would be instantly disqualified, which looked bad in some cases. On that card, Beach Blast, Scotty Flamingo defeated Brian Pillman for the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship, and he won it with a second rope knee drop. Very effective. One of the classic matches on that night, Ricky Steamboat defeated Ravishing Rick Rude in a 30-minute Iron Man match. And that Rude would have won, but he came off the top rope during one of the falls and was disqualified. So Ricky Steamboat won at 5 falls to 4. And WCW Heavyweight Champion Sting defeated Cactus Jack in a Falls Count Anywhere match. A match that Cactus Jack, Mick Foley himself, calls his favorite match during his entire time in WCW.
I love that match. It's so good. Considering you're like Sting and Cactus Jack, how good can that be? There's no blood, there's no explosions, but it's actually really good. It's quick too. So
yes, Mick Foley highlights it in his book, Have a Nice Day, that his match with Sting was his favorite match during his entire career in WCW, which is saying something. June 21st, 1981, in the Omni in Atlanta, Dusty Rhodes would defeat Harley Race for the NWA Heavyweight Championship. Harley Race, this would be the first time, not the last time, he would fall prey to the flying body press. Harley Race can kick out of any finisher maneuver known to man, but for some reason, the flying body press always got to him. In this case, it was, we'll see it in Starrcade 83, but in this case, it was Dusty Rhodes coming off the top rope to hit Harley Race with a flying body press to win his second, at the time, second NWA title. And Dusty would be the first man to ever beat Harley Race twice for the NWA title. And out of Dusty Rhodes' 3 reigns as NWA champion, this would be the longest time he would ever hold the title. He would hold it until September of that year, where he would lose it to a young Ric Flair. But June 21st was Dusty Rhodes' second NWA championship, defeating the great Harley Race. 1 year later, very important date, June 21st, 1982, Junkyard Dog would defeat Big Bob Roop to win the Mid-South North American Heavyweight Championship. That would be the first reign of Junkyard Dog, the first of many reigns that would cement him as the number one babyface in all of the South and the number one babyface in Mid-South history. But I remember that date because it was a special date that Junkyard Dog defeated Bob Roop to win his first North American Heavyweight Championship, because there were some stipulations in that match. Also on that date, June 21st, 2001, Dan, MTV aired the first episode of Tough Enough.
oh wow,
19 years ago, June 21st,
Oh my
2001.
God.
And that first season of Tough Enough gave us those future WWF Hall of Famers with the great names of Maven and Nydia.
Listen, Nydia, not for nothing, Nydia was pretty good.
And Maven had his time. Had a Maven former hardcore champion.
Oh, sure. Nydia, people make fun of that stuff, but that Nydia and Jamie Noble stuff, most of it ages well, and she was fantastic. Nydia was fantastic. Maven, I really wished more for Maven because I don't think anybody will disagree with me. I don't think you'll disagree with me that he had talent.
He had some athletic ability, and he threw a damn good drop kick.
He did. Unfortunately, the only thing I think of Maven is when I see think of Maven, I think of that Royal Rumble, and then Taker, who we'll talk about at the end of this show.
Mm-hmm.
Just Maven pays his dues in about 5 minutes span.
Yeah, but Maven did get a run as a hardcore champion, and he is immortalized in 2 WWF video games.
He is.
I think
Yes.
he was in SmackDown Shut Your Mouth and SmackDown something else, but he's in there. He's a playable character. So kudos to you, Maven. But the first episode,
yeah, that was perfect. Good kudos to him. Perfect. Yes, exactly.
First episode of Tough Enough aired June 21st, 2001. June 22nd, 1996, right here in Philly, was a big card. ECW's Hardcore Heaven. A lot of stuff happened that night. One of them, Chris Jericho, defeated Pitbull number 2 to win the ECW TV Championship. And that will be Jericho's first ever title in the United States. The first of many for Le Champion, but it happened 24 years ago, right here in Philly. He won his first championship, the ECW TV title. Also, Raven had a mystery opponent, and that turned out to be Terry Bam Bam Gordy. First appearance in Philly, the Freebird music hit, and the place went nuts. And he had a great match with Raven. Took a lot of bumps, and Raven sold for him like $1 million, with bleeding a gusher, and Terry Gordy even wrapped barbed wire around his head. But Raven ended up the winner thanks to a lot of outside interference by Stevie Richards and the Blue Guy. And the end was when Sandman came out to help Terry Gordy, and Raven in turn brought out Sandman's wife and his then 6-year-old son. And little Tyler Fullington told Daddy that he was a drunk and that now he worshipped Raven. So that was all that happened on one night, ECW Hardcore Heaven, June 22nd, 1996. June 23rd. Remember just 2 days ago, Dan, I said that Junkyard Dog defeated Bob Roop for the North American Heavyweight Championship?
Yes, I do.
Well, as it happened, Ted DiBiase, who was the number 2 face in Mid-South, he had signed for a loser leave town match against Bob Roop. Bob Roop would be putting up his North American Heavyweight Championship, and if Ted DiBiase won, he would be the North American champion. But if he lost, he would have to leave Mid-South. So it was a loser leave town match that he signed with the Mid-South Heavyweight Champion. Well, as I stated earlier, Junkyard Dog defeated Bob Roop for the North American Heavyweight Championship. So Ted DiBiase's match was now, instead of Bob Roop, was against his best friend, the best man at his wedding, Junkyard Dog. So the fans are split because you have the number 1 and number 2 baby faces going up against each other for the Mid-South North American Heavyweight Championship. And in 2 really good interviews, both Junkyard Dog and Ted DiBiase told the fans how much they respected the other man, and how Ted said, a deal is a deal. I'm not going to try to back out of it. My goal is always to win the North American Heavyweight Championship. And Junkyard Dog said, that's why I love Ted DiBiase, because he's a man of his word. I asked him if he wanted to waive the stipulations. He said no. So the loser of this match will have to leave town, and whoever it is, I'll shake his hand at the end of the match, and it'll be okay. So Junkyard Dog went up against Ted DiBiase. The fans were torn. It was a very clean match. Fans were cheering every single move. Uh, Ted DiBiase went for a go behind and unfortunately fell out of the ring. And while he was out there, he went into his tights and he put on some type of glove. And Junkyard Dog helped Ted back in the ring because during this exchange, the referee had gotten jostled a little bit. So while the referee was regaining his senses, the glove that Ted DiBiase was on his right hand, he hit Junkyard Dog with it, and Junkyard Dog was out like a light. Curious though was calling the match on color commentary was Bob Roop, the one beat that lost the North American title to Junkyard Dog. And Bob Roop, who was the most hated man in Mid South, said, "Look at what Ted DiBiase did. No one can knock the Junkyard Dog out with one punch. That Ted DiBiase's a snake." And Ted DiBiase pinned Junkyard Dog to not only win the North American Heavyweight Championship, but forced Junkyard Dog to leave the Mid South. And on that date, June 23rd, 1982, Dan, Ted DiBiase became a heel for the first time in his career.
I think he ever looked back, huh?
And he never looked back. So June 23rd, 1982, Ted DiBiase became the North American Heavyweight Champion and cemented his legacy as one of the greatest heels in the history of professional wrestling. And the man himself, when I met him right here in Philadelphia, when I asked Ted DiBiase about turning heel, he went to Ernie Ladd, who was a booker at the time, because Ernie Ladd was tearing at his hair. He didn't have a heel to go up against Junkyard Dog. And Ted DiBiase saw that he was wrestling 20, 30 minutes every night against Dick Slater, against Dick Murdoch, against some of the biggest, baddest heels in wrestling. And Junkyard Dog would come to the ring, wiggle his legs, wrestle for 5 minutes, and get all the money. So one day, Ted DiBiase knocked on Ernie Ladd's door, his hotel door, and said, "Ernie, I found your number one heel." And Ernie said, "Who is it?" And Ted said, "You're looking at him." And Ernie looked at him and said, "Yes, I am." And that was the idea, and Ted DiBiase never looked back. That same date, June 23rd, 1984, due to the untimely death, Dan, of David Von Erich, the Texas Heavyweight Championship was vacated. So there was a tournament to crown a new Texas Heavyweight Champion. And two of the people that participated in this tournament wound up in the finals. They were the American Heavyweight Champion, which was the number one title in Texas after the Texas Heavyweight title. The American Heavyweight Champion, Gino Hernandez, entered the tournament, and he wound up in the finals against the reigning, defending NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Ric Flair, who also entered the tournament to crown a new Texas Heavyweight Champion. So in the finals, the American Heavyweight Champion, Gino Hernandez, pinned the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Ric Flair, to become the new Texas Heavyweight Champion.
Wow.
June 23rd, 1984. It was a wacky tournament because Kerry Von Erich actually defeated Gino Hernandez, but Gino injured him after the match, so Kerry Von Erich couldn't continue. So Gino Hernandez, even though he lost in the semifinals, took his place and wound up in the finals with Ric Flair. And Ric Flair was knocked out by Gino Hernandez because when Ric Flair had him up in a suplex in the belly to back, Gino reached into his trunks and knocked out Ric Flair with a pair of brass knuckles and pinned the NWA champion 1-2-3 to win the Texas Heavyweight Championship. Two champions fighting over another title. On that same day, 10 years later, I told you Ric Flair was the NWA Heavyweight Champion in 1984. Well, in 1994, WCW held its 27th Clash of the Champions. And in that, the WCW World Champion, Ric Flair, there's that name again, defeated the International Heavyweight Champion, Sting, to unify both belts. And as after the match, where after Ric Flair had won, he was continuing putting the boots to Sting. But who should come out and make the save but Hulk Hogan, which would set the stage for the eventual Hulk Hoganization of WCW. But Ric Flair, 10 years to the day, still went from the NWA champion to WCW heavyweight champion. On that same Clash of Champions, though, Dan, uh, Johnny B. Bad would defeat the United States champion, stunning Steve Austin by disqualification.
Wow.
Exactly 2 years later, that same date, June 23rd, 1996,
Uh-huh.
WWF held its 4th annual King of the Ring tournament. And what was the opening bout? The King of the Ring tournament. Stunning no more, Stone Cold Steve Austin defeated Mark Marrow to advance in the King of the Ring tournament.
Wild man Mark Marrow.
Wild man Mark Marrow. So Johnny B. Bad and Stunning Steve gave way to Stone Cold and Wild Man. In that bout, that Stone Cold won with a stunner. Mark Marrow hit the lip of Steve Austin, and that required 16 stitches to close. Right after the match, Steve Austin left the arena, went to a local hospital, got 16 stitches in his lip, came back to wrestle the tournament final, and defeated Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake Roberts had defeated Vader to advance to the finals. And in the King of the Ring final, Stone Cold Steve Austin defeated Jake the Snake Roberts to win King of the Ring. Afterwards, gave the promo of a lifetime, and Austin 316 was born. So happy 24th birthday to Austin 316, born June 23rd, 1996. Steve Austin in a post-match interview with Doc Hendricks. And Austin 316 means I just whipped your ass.
And the world was never the same after.
And nothing's ever been the same since. So happy 24th birthday to Austin 316. Which brings us to today, June 24th, 1972. I mentioned Texas before. Well, the first Parade of Champions took place at Texas Stadium, June 24th, 1972. NWA champion Dory Funk Jr. went to a 60-minute draw with Fritz von Erich in front of 26,339 fans in Texas Stadium. That was in 1972.
Wow, man.
Yeah. Also, that same date, 19 years ago, on this date, 2001, the WWF held its 9th King of the Ring. And that tournament final, Edge would defeat Kurt Angle to win the King of the Ring. Edge, who just wrestled recently, but 19 years ago was the King of the Ring. And that same card, Kurt Angle would win a street fight against Shane McMahon, a match that still resonates to this day because that's one of the most brutal matches I've still ever seen. Between Kurt and Shane. I think Shane broke his coccyx in that match. He was belly to belly through a wall that didn't break, and Shane barely came close to landing straight on his head. But yeah, the Kurt Angle Shane McMahon street fight happened on this date, 2001, and the main event that night was the WWE champion Stone Cold Steve Austin would defeat Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho in a triple threat match. Austin pinning Jericho after the Benoit suplex, but attacking Stone Cold after the match and making his WWE debut 19 years ago today, two-time WWE Hall of Famer Booker T. And in that at that post-game beat down on Stone Cold, Booker T's bookend, not to be confused with the Rock Bottom. He put Stone Cold through a table in making his debut. He said it was a little overzealous, but that in that table spot, Stone Cold ended up breaking his hand, and he would be out for a while. But that was 19 years ago today. Booker T made his debut in the WWE, and that, gentlemen and ladies, is called the Wrestling Historian.
Well, with that, we go back to the present and to a little bit of a more peaceful present, which is some guy retired this week. Some no-name guy, unknown, never heard of him. Irish guy out of Texas, Mark Calloway, retired. The Undertaker retired. It's weird because you and I started talking about the last ride when it debuted, and for some reason it did not occur to me that this was it, and it should have. But alas, here we are at the end, the literal last ride of the Undertaker. He is done, and I know you and I have seen mostly eye to eye. Yes, a round of applause for some guys don't get out, and I believe, other than there'll probably be a one-off here and there, I truly believe that. An appearance here and there, a choke slam and a tombstone every now and then. He seemed like, unlike some of his peers and predecessors, that he was like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to ever, I feel good. I don't need to ever go back. And I will say he seemed, considering everything that was going on at the time and how everything changed and the death of his brother and all this other stuff, he seemed happy with his final match. Whether you and I liked it or not is irrelevant at this point. He seemed happy. And the dead man is dead. Craig, this is where you take over. You and I have this is your cue, Craig.
Okay, I'm just getting it all in because I've made no secret about how I feel about the Undertaker on this very podcast on many a times.
Yes, but let me point out somebody pointed out, who unfortunately remain nameless at this point, that you're on, like, your personal BS bias. Your personal bias aside, you put the BS aside and you evaluate somebody for real anyway. You don't like The Undertaker, but in the same breath, you acknowledge his impact in and out of the ring, period. So this is coming from a place of honesty, so go for it. Don't hold back, Craig. You never held back before.
I will not. Like I was saying, I've made no secret about how I feel about The Undertaker. Mark Calloway, I've always respected. He's always been a superior talent, even when I saw him way back when he was the Punisher in the world class, under a mask, and then when he was Mean Mark Callis in WCW. Knew the guy can move, a guy that big with that athletic ability. He's gonna be a star. He didn't even need to have a great promo because I know he could go in the ring, and if he was smart, he'd surround himself with a manager who could talk for him, which he did for most of his career. And the Undertaker remains and will always be the greatest creation that the greatest character the WWF has ever created. There's no debating that whatsoever. And what he's done for the business, what he's done for the WWF, as being kind of like the in-ring El Presidente, locker room leader, the most respected man in the locker room, in any locker room. Um, He's always had the respect of not only the people he wrestled with, but the people he wrestled against. And with Vince, now I'm saying this because I have not seen all of the. I was waiting for it to be over so I could binge watch it. Because as much as I'm not a fan of the Undertaker, I love a good documentary, and I want to see what's going on, what goes on in anything. And I made the Bob Dylan comparison. I don't like Bob Dylan. I don't like his music. There's not any good thing I can say about Bob Dylan outside of him being a good person. But when the history of music is talked about, you have to include Bob Dylan. And like Dylan with The Undertaker, I never got the appeal. I don't know why everyone's so enamored with him. I think his matches are boring. I think his promos are boring. There's nothing that he's done or seen that I haven't seen already before. I've always seen him as a more athletic Blackjack Mulligan, or the spoiler without his mask. Um, I wouldn't be excited to see any Undertaker match. I've never been excited to see any Undertaker match. So I wanted to say goodbye to him many years ago. It should have been done a long time ago. I'm very happy that he's finally given it up. It's something he's long overdue. Um, I don't know why any fan would want to see him coming back year after year after year. There's a reason he was called Santa Claus because seeing him once a year. But that's it. I mean, and then speaking of him, why would you want to put yourself through this? It seemed like right after the last match he had at WrestleMania, he'd start training a full year again just for that one match again. What kind of way is that to live? And what are you doing to your fans who have already said, or been ready to say goodbye to you? And I get mad at the fans that keep wanting to see him back because again, I don't get the adulation. I don't get the attention that oh my god, it's the Undertaker. What? The entrance? That's great. I'm not gonna pay to see that. Again, I wouldn't pay a dime to see the Undertaker. Because I haven't missed anything for the last 20 odd years. I'm glad he's gone. To Mark Calloway, congratulations. You've had an amazing, wonderful career that anyone would envy. There's never going to be another one like you, ever. You set the bar way too high for anyone to match. Congratulations on everything you've done. As far as the Undertaker, bye. Man, I can't wait to see you go. You've done absolutely nothing for me as a wrestling fan, and whew, long overdue. Way, way long overdue.
Well, he said, "Boo, boo, this man."
Boo this man.
Listen, I disagree with everything you just said. I will agree with you in the last couple of years, and it was well documented. Documented. It was well documented in this documentary that there was a couple of missteps there. I disagree with you. I was younger than you though, so
Yeah.
I believed the hype. I believed.
And if I was younger, Dan, I would say the same thing. If I was 10 when Hulkamania came out, I would have been buying the ice cream
Thank God
bars.
you weren't.
Yeah. So I was 18, so I was already, I wasn't about to go crazy over Hogan. And by the time the Undertaker came out, I was in my 30s. So I'd seen Mark Callis, I'd seen the Punisher, I knew who he was. You took this great athletic guy and now just turned him into a mummy. And I'm supposed to be impressed by that. And he's supposed to be some type of phenom. Please, Mike Awesome, that's a phenom. Okay, Undertaker, nowhere close to that. So not gonna get crazy over. I'm not gonna. There's nothing exciting about him. I know I'm in the minority. Everyone who's bullying me right now on Twitch, I know I'm in the minority. And when I'm out in wrestling, when I would go to wrestling matches, and everyone would buy Undertaker merch, or man, I can't wait to see the Undertaker. I was like, why? What the hell? What do you think he's going to do that's going to get you out of your seat? He's not The Rock. He's not Stone Cold. He's not even CM Punk or Jericho. Those guys, I know every time I see them, they're going to say something or do something different. Undertaker, what's he going to show you that you haven't seen? And if when you see it, why do you still get excited over it? I don't get it. But it's not about me. It's about the people that love the Undertaker, and I'm not going to try to change your mind or anything like that. So to you, Dan, the person who actually does like the putrid bowl of crap that is the Undertaker that comes out to the ring all the time, what is it that you're going to miss?
Oh, nothing.
Oh,
No. I was gonna say when I was much younger, man, it was all about the mystique and the power and the belief of the Undertaker. And as I got older, I was like, this is great for the kids. This is great for nostalgia. But let's go.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Kind of pick it up.
You go fit. But I will say this: I like the Boneyard match where you didn't. I like that they got him out of the ring because it was clear that was not cutting anymore, and they got him in another atmosphere. And early on in this whole COVID thing and all the madness that's going with that, I needed that and I enjoyed it. So I'm quite happy with the way he went out. So as long as he's happy, I'm happy. I know.
Yeah.
I know you hate it, but
well, if the best way for him to go out is to do a scene from The Walking Dead, then that's a fitting end to the Undertaker. Do a theatrical match where it takes multi takes to get it right, to
The
make him
thing
look
that
as
the thing that
invincible as
pulled
possible.
Edge's tricep apart. Different
Yeah,
takes.
yeah. Take two. Okay, we're gonna pick it up from the turnbuckle spot, and whenever you're ready, go.
Craig, where can
Okay.
people?
Okay, Mark. Okay, we didn't get the light set up right, so when you Tombstone AJ again, could you just do back it up a little bit? Okay, and go. Hey, where can people find me, Dan? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can find me to give me their Undertaker grievances at Craig Lagon, CraigLiggeons, and that's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Feed me your Undertaker hate. Feed it to me.
Follow me on Twitter at danlaw83. I run a site for these guys, and twitch.tv/danlaw83 and youtube.com/danlaw83. For the audio podcast, just go to vocnation.com. On your smartphone, type in VOC Nation Radio Network. For Craig Lagans, I am Dan Calachico, the above average comedian. It didn't feel very funny this week, but we had a good time nevertheless. Thanks to Foxy coming on this week. Look out for the once a month break that will be the Nerd Herders reboot. See you next week, everybody. Goodbye.